to another CAPS video. Today we have a very special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Rosaline. I'm currently studying at the University of Waterloo. I'm in my 4B term currently, which is actually my final study term. And I'm actually from Kitchener, so from the KW region. So I grew up pretty close to the university.
So what are some things that you wish you knew before going into university, whether it was about the research process or browsing their website and their offered programs, stuff like that?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a couple things that I wish I knew before going into university. First of all, I wish I checked more for programs that have co-op or placements. So I didn't realize how important that was to me until I came to Waterloo. As you might know, the University of Waterloo has, I think, like the largest co-op program in North America, and I didn't realize how valuable that was to me until I experienced it. So I think if I were to apply again, that's definitely something I would look for. Like, it doesn't have to be co-op, but placement or some sort of experience where you get to actually work in the area of your study. I found that made a world of a difference for me to help me determine if my program is the right one for me and if I actually enjoy what I'm studying and what career I'll ultimately be in. I would also say to probably view the alumni list. So that was something I wasn't really aware of when applying either, but a lot of universities will post on their website names of alumni, which are people who have graduated from the university, from particular programs. And you can kind of get a feel of what kind of careers they're doing now that they've graduated, what kind of jobs they're doing, and kind of imagine if that's something you would enjoy doing as well, potentially. And then another thing I would recommend is talking to current students, because I think that's really the best way to get a feel of the culture of the program and the school, and just figuring out whether that school would be a good fit for you, because that's also really important, not just you applying, but also whether that program is the right fit for you. And then finally, I would say also you could take a look at the course listings for particular programs. So usually universities will have that posted on their website. And you can just see if those courses are actually of interest to you.
That makes a lot of sense. So what services or programs did you access to help you as a student when studying at UW?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's quite a few programs that were really helpful to me personally. So one thing that I found really helpful at UW was they have a variety of mentorship programs. So I think a couple that I did in first year were e-mentoring, which do the AFM program, which I don't know if I mentioned yet, but that's the program I'm studying at for the University of Waterloo. It's AFM, which is Accounting and Financial Management. So for our particular program, we have this thing called the Fellowship Program, and essentially they help you get connected to a lot of extracurricular activities that you can be involved in. You get to interact with the faculty a lot, for example, by doing teaching assistant roles where you help the professors with marking exams and things like that. So I found that to be really helpful, and it gave me a lot of opportunities to interact with other people in my program. I know UW also has a student success office, so they do like leadership workshops and coaching, provide you with information on exchange opportunities, stuff like that. And then there's also this thing called the Center for Career Action. So this is pretty specific to UW, but it's mostly to help you prepare for searching for your co-op job, because most UW programs do have co-op, and helping you determine and make decisions for your career and further education.
That makes sense. So why did you choose to study at University of Waterloo?
Yeah, so there's a few main reasons I would say. Probably the biggest one is one I mentioned already, but they do have one of the largest co-op programs in North America, which I personally found pretty impressive. And that was definitely something that stood out to me because I really wanted to experience working in the career that I chose before even graduating. And then also just another practical reason, I wanted to live close to home, like I could save on rent because rent is expensive. You know, I can eat home cooked meals. Like there's pros and cons to that because I think if you move away, it also teaches you to be independent and you can have different experiences than if you were living at home, as I am right now. But yeah, there's definitely pros and cons to each. And then also UW is a pretty world-renowned institution. They're known for their research departments, their innovation. It's really close to a tech hub as well here in KW. So yeah, those were all things that kind of attracted me to the university.
For sure. So what do you like best about your program in particular?
Yeah, sure. I think what I like best about the Accounting and Financial Management program at UW is they really try to emphasize your development in all facets of your university experience. So they kind of call it creating your experiential advantage. So they emphasize 4 areas of university, which is academics, career, community, and health. So they really try to promote different opportunities and experiences that you can have in all 4 of these areas. And I think this way it really helps you to have an engaging and more valuable university experience instead of just focusing on one, like for example, academics or community or something like that. The program also has a very strong sense of mentorship. As I previously mentioned, there's a lot of ways to connect with your peers and also with upper year students and faculty. And I found that those relationships that I formed with those people in my program were really helpful and really valuable. And then finally, I would say our program has a lot of extracurricular opportunities, a lot of workshops to help you explore your interests, prepare for co-op, and just for your career in general. So you definitely feel very prepared for everything that the program has to offer you.
That's really cool. So I know you covered this a little bit before, but could you tell us a little more about your program, like workload, class sizes, environment, stuff like that?
Yeah, I can give a bit more detail. So in terms of workload, I would say it's pretty standard when I think about, comparing with how much my friends are studying and their course load and stuff like that. I would say it's pretty average, pretty mid-range. I would say maybe around like 50 hours a week, including preparation and classes and homework. But keep in mind that this will definitely depend on the student because some people learn faster and some people learn slower, and that's okay. But I think it's also definitely changing because how the classes have been online for the past couple terms. So the workload has also changed a bit as they've tried to modify things to an online setting. In terms of environment, I would say overall I felt really supported in my 4 years of undergrad. I've met some really amazing people. And everyone is very hardworking and passionate about what they're studying, which I found to be very motivating for myself as well. And then class sizes, well, it's hard to say because it's also been virtual recently, but I guess before we went virtual, it could range from very small to like 50 students per class to some larger classes are maybe like over 100 students. And yeah, in terms of internships and co-ops, I touched a bit on it before, but for accounting and financial management, you'd be mostly looking at public accounting firms, financial service roles in banks or corporations, startups and public agencies, not-for-profit organizations, things like that.
Oh, I see. Okay. So what are some interesting facts or things that you didn't know about UW until you actually studied there? For example, studying on campus specifically.
Yeah, this was actually hard for me to think of because I grew up in KW, so I already knew a lot about the region and stuff like that. But I think what surprised me after coming onto campus was there's actually a lot more geese than I thought there would be because there are a lot of geese in KW. I kind of compare it to if you're from the GTA, how there's like so many pigeons in Toronto. So the equivalent in Waterloo is geese. But when you actually set foot on campus, there's a lot more geese than you would expect. And I think there's actually an app that someone created where you can track like where all the geese are so you can avoid them on your way to class because it can be kind of aggressive. I've never used it personally, but I think it's there, it exists. And also something that surprised me was how much there's a culture of like bubble tea. Like bubble tea is a huge culture here, and I think it's a very common like social activity as well. So often like people will just go out to get bubble tea, and that's not something I really did before going to UW. And it's also pretty close. The campus is pretty close to, we have a park here called Waterloo Park. which is pretty nice for like chilling. And then it's also pretty close to Uptown Waterloo, which has some cute restaurants and places to go as well.
That's really cool. So what are some of the best places around campus to like chill out and study, stuff like that?
I think so. As I mentioned already, bubble tea is getting very popular. I feel like there's new bubble tea places opening up like every term. There's also a lot of food places near the University Plaza. So there's a variety of cuisine that includes like Asian, Middle Eastern, Italian. Campus itself also has some nice places. So they have like some food places and also cafes. My personal favorite is probably a building called EV3, which stands for Environment 3. So it's actually for like the environment students, but they have a really nice Williams Cafe there. And then they have a green plant wall, which is supposed to like help the air or something. And there's just a lot of sunlight and open windows. And it's like a really nice place to relax or study.
That seems really nice. So what are 3 tips that you can share with high school students who want to pursue a post-secondary education?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think my number 1 tip would just be to really think about the reason you're choosing a program. Because I remember when I was applying for post-secondary education, I really wasn't too sure what I wanted to do. And that's okay because you're still really young. And I think it's really hard to know for sure what you want to do for the rest of your life when you're just in high school. But I would still recommend really doing your research, doing your due diligence, talking to students who are currently studying at those programs, looking up the courses, attending those workshops or open houses or whatever, just to get a feel of the program as well. Because although it is possible to transfer to other programs after you've entered university or college or whatever it may be, it is a bit harder than if you chose a program that you liked from the get-go. It's not impossible, but it's just a smoother process. And also I feel the more years you spend in a program, the more it feels like a sunk cost. That's kind of an economic term that we learned in accounting, but it just means like the more time and money you spend on something, the more you feel pressured to commit to it, even if you don't particularly enjoy it. So I would say, yeah, don't just pick a program for the sake of picking a program. Really think about it. Think about what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, what your strengths and weaknesses are. Don't just pick a program because your friends are going to it. Like really think for yourself on this one. Another tip I would have is expect for first year to be a bit of an adjustment, and that's okay. Definitely first year was a big adjustment for me. I had a lot of struggles academically, socially as well, just meeting new people and getting used to my classes and the course load. It's definitely very different from high school. So yeah, don't panic if things don't go smoothly the first time. One bad grade won't determine your success in the long run. And it's just a really good time to establish effective study habits, make friends, and develop healthy routines. And then finally, my last tip would just be, at the end of the day, your university or post-secondary experience is really what you get out of it, and what you put into it. So I would just recommend taking advantage of all the opportunities that are available to you. For example, in my first year of university, I chose to go on an exchange to Taiwan, and I was able to teach English there for 6 weeks. And yeah, that was just something I really wanted to do, something that interested me. And yes, it did take some more time and more effort, but it was really worth it. And I think it was one of the most memorable experiences of my university career. So definitely just take advantage of everything that's available to you.
That's really cool that you did that. So since you're in 4th year and you've been on campus for more than 6 months, what are some important things to bring with you while you are actually on campus?
Yeah. And I was actually living on residence for my first year of university. Even though I'm from KW, that's just something I wanted to do, just to experience that. So I can speak a bit about, like things you should bring for your first year. So obviously there's like the basics like clothes and food and stuff like that, but definitely something like a portable laptop or maybe notebooks, however your preference may be, to take notes. Yeah, I would recommend a laptop that's a bit more portable. Obviously, that's up to personal preference, but for me, since you're bringing it to back like to classes and then back to your residence and whatnot, you might want it to be a bit more portable. I would also recommend bringing healthy snacks because that'll help you avoid the temptation of just going on midnight McDonald's runs or whatever. Yeah, it'll help keep you in check. And then cooking utensils, if you plan to cook, which I would recommend learning as well, because you'll eventually get sick of your meal plan or get sick of eating out all the time. So if cooking is something you're able to do, I'd recommend bringing stuff for that. Exercise and workout clothes, if you plan to work out, which I would recommend taking advantage of the school facilities. Also a resume and cover letter, like you don't have to have one written up for university. It's not a big deal, but if you do have one, that's something you should bring with you as well. And something maybe not for everyone, but at least I personally found helpful was keeping a journal. It's kind of old school, but I really like to write down things that were happening and just write down my thoughts. Sometimes I would do like a brain dump at the end of the day or just use it to jot down to-do lists throughout the day as well. And then finally, just like a positive attitude, open mind. Yeah, just bring yourself and you'll have a great time.
For sure. So before we go, is there anything that you would like to add? Any last minute thoughts and stuff?
There's so many, but I would say the people that you meet in the first few weeks of school might not be the people you end up sticking with for the rest of your university career. That's just something I realized, and that's totally okay. So I would just say be open to new friendships and opportunities to meet new people. And if you don't vibe right away with like the first people you meet, that's totally okay as well. Yeah, and I would also say to choose your roommates wisely if you're able to do so, because you will be living with them. You want to make sure you can get along and that you have similar lifestyle habits. Yeah, and I already mentioned this, but learning to cook and meal prep definitely helps, especially in your later years. But yeah, that's probably everything. I think you asked really great questions, Jamie, so I think you covered pretty much everything.
Thank you. So thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview. I know you're very busy in your fourth year, so I appreciate this.
No worries, my pleasure.
If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below or send them to the CAP's Instagram. And yeah, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks, Jamie. That was a lot of fun.